As a recap, the Four Noble Truths are: there is suffering; second noble truth, there's a cause; third noble truth, there's an end; and fourth noble truth is the prescription on getting free, which is the Eightfold Path. Now, rather than giving a huge overview on the Eightfold Path, I figured we would just dive straight into it. There's a lot of overlap between the first fold of the Eightfold Path and the Four Noble Truths. So the first fold of the Eightfold Path is called a wise view or wise understanding. You can, depending on who you're talking to, those are used interchangeably. Similarly, sometimes the Eightfold Path is written as right. It's the right view, or instead of wise, I prefer to use wise. It feels a little less dogmatic than this is the right way to do something. So what is indicated with wise view is circle back to the Four Noble Truths, essentially, right? It's the realization of viewing the world through that lens. That would be the ultimate level, what in Buddhism the Buddha differentiated as super mundane version of wise view, is the full realization of the Eightfold Path. And it said that the full realization of the Four Noble Truths. And it's indicated in the teachings that very few people actually succeed, that it's hard to sort of break free from our biological conditioning, which is a nervous system and a reward system center that loves to chase dopamine. And in a world where dopamine hits are easy, quick, and fast, realizing the Four Noble Truths, realizing the super mundane wise view, very challenging to do. Another aspect of wise view is what they call the mundane version, which there's different levels, different aspects to it, but what it boils down to is our karma. That even if you're to take the Eightfold Path consecutively, what you will notice is that wise view our views influence our intentions. So the second fold of the Eightfold Path are the intentions. So any view that we hold is going to influence our intentions in the world. And then the next section of the Eightfold Path is all about where karma is actually generated: our speech, our actions, our livelihood. And so without having a wise understanding or a wise view, the links all say that we'll end up generating negative karma through those means, through our speech, through our actions, through our livelihood. So we trace it back to how do we develop correct views so that way we try to avoid some suffering in our ethics. So one of the ways that is done, and I'll try to, I don't know, maybe we'll have a short night tonight. One of the ways that's done is through attempting to develop views of generosity. That's one that the Buddha names, is that trying to view the world from a sense of we are meant to give. And another one is, it says, it doesn't say anything about having to do with, but it just says you have a mom and dad. And the relationship to this is not like, oh, you need to like give them your heart and your soul and everything, but it's what it's trying to point us to is that we are relational creatures and beings. That if you dig a little bit further into like what happens to human beings if they're left to fend for themselves, do studies on feral children, we come out super fucked up if we don't have human interaction at an early age. Even if it's a fucked up, even if we're raised fucked up, we still end up becoming human on some level. And that even without that, even if it's fucked up, we lose our humanity. And so being able to recognize that. Another aspect of the mundane view is, it says there's our world and then there's other worlds. And again, like this, on the face of it, kind of sounds like it's like trying to be uber duper super spiritual, but it's talking about our karmic momentum. I know for me in my own practice, one of the things that I tend to, with recognizing that everything is impermanent, everything's unsatisfactory, not everything, but there's a lot of things that are unsatisfactory, that nothing is personal, my mind can easily start to drift into like a sense of nihilism, right? If nothing really matters, then why try all that fucking hard? And that's where this statement of Wise View comes in. There's our world and there's other worlds, meaning what we do has an exponential effect, not just on our little sphere of control, but further out into upon generations. It may not seem that way, but we can look back at that stupid fucking early 2000s movie, The Butterfly Effect. Like that's like what comes to mind when I think about this one, is the way that the smallest little things that we do can have massive implications. And so that to sort of combat and emphasize another aspect of the mundane view, which is conviction. What does conviction mean in terms of Wise View? It's that, it's one thing to say I like Buddhism. That's a chill thing. But if I just say that I like it, or I view it as something that is good, but it doesn't hold any conviction, then it's not doing anything to affect my actions, right? It's not doing anything that is going to generate future less suffering in my life. So being able to take our views with a sense of conviction that, once again, our actions have cause and effect, and really beginning to not just look at that with the big changes we make, like the jobs we change, but in the smaller things that we do day to day. How we cook for ourselves, how we interact with our friends, how we interact with a clerk. I often think about some of the most impactful moments of my life were moments that I had with strangers. I know I've told this story before, but I don't know why it makes me so so warm inside every time I think about it was when we were in India going up to Vultures Creek, and we were like getting a photo with some random group that was up there, and there was like this little Korean woman, and she was so excited to take a picture with me, and she grabbed my hand and held my hand, and to this day I still think about just how much that made me feel connected to humanity. That despite, you know, my own perceptions, right, of like, oh, you know, I'm this like punk, goth, alternative, tattooed person, like she probably, like I'm probably scaring this poor woman. And it was totally different, you know, across cultures and across language, there was a moment of shared humanity. And, you know, it's those types of moments that we have the ability to cast out into the world like fucking confetti. But we often are so self-centered that we don't. So, I'll leave the intro to that talk, or to the talk there. Ultimately, I'll also add that all wise view should lead to ease. If that's one of the checks that you can look for. Very easy. Does my view, does my understanding of something lead to ease? So, that will be the essence of the prompt for our discussion today. So if you're tuning in online, please meditate or journal on the topic. All right, let's meditate.
Okay, if you say so.
Finding a way to sit that is upright. Relaxing any tension held in the body, shoulders, belly. Scanning the face, muscles around the eyes and the jaw. Connecting with the breath. Staying with the breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. And breathing out, know that you're breathing out. Not letting your mind convince you it has something better to do. That this fantasy, this memory, this plan is more important than sitting with the breath. Bringing the whole mind and body into the breath. The sense doors, noticing different sounds, the taste in your mouth, smells. Here, we're not trying to get rid of thought. We're attempting to just let them pass by. Our body remains seated. Intentions aimed at noticing the breath and the different sensations the body is feeling. The mind is just another sense door. Like hearing, like tasting. Sometimes the mind wanders all on its own, and we awaken, we notice that we got lost, and we gently bring ourselves back. And sometimes we get bored and make a decision to plan, think about something that we think is more important. Recollect memories, fantasize about tattoos or things we might buy. And investigating through this wise view, when we allow ourselves to be swept away by that, what is the view telling us? What is the understanding telling us? What is our view in those moments? What is our understanding? Is there any? An important metric for wise view, wise understanding is that it leads to ease. It leads to the end of suffering. And one way we develop this is through loving kindness, as we maybe begin to start looking at some of our suffering. With the wish, I want to be at ease. I want to be free. If you are a visualizer type of person, maybe you visualize loving kindness as gloves on your hands. Holding the wishes of ease and gentleness, and begin picking up the suffering in our lives. Rolling it around into our hands until we can see clearly what the views are related to the suffering. I want to be at ease. I want to be free from suffering. Each suffering, big or small, has a root in our understanding and in our views. And when we understand that our views are the areas that begin the chain reaction of cause and effect, coming to this place, sitting with these questions, and letting the intuition respond, letting the wise mind respond. If you're still utilizing the visual, begin letting go of the visual. And bringing ourselves back to the present moment of noticing the different sounds and tastes, and investigating what might be present in the heart or mind now, any difference. And as we come to the end of the meditation, allowing our eyes to open and our attention to come back into the room. It occurred to me in the meditation. It's a very silly thing the mind came up with. I was like, what if I had like a note card for every view that I had? And I feel like especially nowadays, it's like the idea of I don't know is like you would be the worst person in the world. If you like said I don't know. It's like better to, which isn't view. It's not having no view. It's not having like no stance on anything, right? But simply just like being like I don't know. That's like worse than having an incorrect view. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know, something that came up for me during the meditation. But a big influence on our views is our perceptions. And I'm not going to go too deeply into the 5 aggregates, but it's part of the chain that creates our stories and our narratives is perception. And you know, we can see this clearly when you probably maybe heard the analogy of if you're walking in the forest and you see a snake and you're terrified, you're like, shit, fuck, there's a fucking snake. And then you double take and you're like, oh, it was stick. And how much our perception can totally influence our thoughts, our behaviors, and everything that we do, even if the perception is incorrect. Obviously, the stick was not a snake, and yet our body reacted. One of the, I think, very evident things is trauma can be a perception issue. So obviously, there's some amount of trauma that tells us where things are unsafe, but often those who have PTSD or CPTSD or you know, certain trauma triggers, the reaction is so much bigger than the actual trigger itself, right? It's a color, it's a perception of could actually be a stick, but we view it as snake. And I had a situation actually this past week even where a very large stick snake came forward in my life, and you know, my whole body just reacted. My body was like, fuck this shit. And the amount of work that it took to unwind my perception of this situation to be more accurate to what it truly was really fucking hard. But, you know, I'd been convinced that this specific stick was a snake for, you know, probably a decade at this point. So, you know, it's hard. And I feel like one of the things that, you know, one of the questions that trauma continuously, I feel like, points to is what did I promise myself would never happen again? It's like that's always like the deep cut when it comes to trying to view all sticks as snakes for our own protection. It's like, well, I got bit by a snake once. I will never let that shit happen again. And so we learn, you know, through short fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whichever way, we learn to deal with it. But it's a form of our body being in a state of fight, war. And what if we just let go? Does that lead to ease? That's what the teachings are trying to point us to, right? Regardless if it's a stick or a snake, does it help us to, you know, as long, I guess, and there's a self-defense claim we could throw here, you know, of like, if the snake is like, got you on the actual throat. But in most cases in nature, snakes aren't trying to do that. They're just like there. So regardless if it is a stick or a snake, oughtn't we react the same of just like, there it is. First noble truth, there is suffering. And a part of this is we hold so tightly to those aspects of our story that we're afraid that if we let aspects of our story go, that we won't see the snake coming again. So we have to. We have to hold on. And it's not, I feel like in any of those stories, there are nuggets of wisdom in them, right? Maybe we do learn not everybody is deserving of trust. Maybe we do learn trust is earned. Maybe we learn what harm is. We can still remember those parts of the trauma. But allowing, you know, I feel like it's the when we're in that space, trauma triggered, right? It's seeing the world like this, right? It's like this is all we can see, is the trauma, is the and what Buddhism is asking us to do is not to say like cut off the hand, get rid of it, but to take it and bring it out here so it's in context with everything else. One of my favorite stories of wise understanding, of wise views, is the story of two monks who walk to go gather supplies for their little village, and they come across some straw, and they decide, okay, this would be great for the village. Like, we could use this to sleep on. We could use this for some reason, certainly. And so both monks pick up some straw, and they're heading back. And on this route back, they notice, oh wait, there's some there's some good dry wood right there. And so one of the monks lets go of their straw and decides to pick up the wood. And they keep going. And they come across a stream. And so that same monk who now has the bramble is like, maybe the water's better. Lets go of the wood. Picks up the water. Because that's how you pick up water. And they continue on. And, you know, the story gets very... And then they come across rubies and go, you know, whatever. You get the point. Ultimately, one monk comes back with gold for the village, and the other one is still holding on to straw. All along crossing these different things that he might need, he says, I've been holding the straw all this way. I can't let go of it now. And especially with trauma, I've been holding it all of this way. I can't let go of it now. And so this being an analogy, a metaphor for our views, right? Not holding it so tightly that it's the only thing that we believe in, right? Looking at the different things, because, you know, did either of them ever ask themselves what was going to actually truly be the most efficient thing for the village? You know, maybe firewood was the most important thing for the village, but he's like, I got gold. I mean, sure, you could buy shit with it, but like, did you have to continue? And so the point of the analogy is also a criticism on the other monk who kept picking up new things, which is to have that conviction in whatever it is your view is, right? To not just be so willy-nilly. And finally, one of the Buddhist aspects, or one of the things the Buddha says in the suttas, is that no views is also probably like the worst thing. Like worse than having bad views, like no views is like the most fucked up thing. So like centrist or whatever, sorry.
The enlightened centrist.
Yes. But I like that views is synonymous with understanding, that you can use these interchangeably. That, you know, whether it's trauma or our political beliefs, all of them can be viewed as, this is my understanding as it is now. And, you know, through the Eightfold Path, you know, we can look at different ways of, if this view, if this understanding that I am currently having isn't leading to ease, it's not serving me. And so what other tools do I need to start thumbing through to change my understanding, so that way it is eventually leading to less suffering in our lives. All right, I'll end it there. Any questions or thoughts to share?
I still don't really understand the process of letting go.
Aware, care, release, ease.
It's the release part I can't do.
The needing to do anything about it right now. Because you can't let go of something in a vacuum. You're gonna pick it back up. That's just what the mind does, right? I say I'm gonna quit smoking, and then 2 hours later I decide I'm gonna start smoking. I have to be able to release quitting smoking or being a cigarette smoker in every moment. I can't decide in a vacuum I'm letting go. Does that make sense? It's a moment to moment.
So it's like forgiveness.
Yes, exactly. It's not like the grand letting go that we see in, like, I don't know, like movies or maybe even Christianity. I don't know if Christian. I feel like that's a very Christian thing of just being like, I am absolved because I like confessed or something, and it's like.
Specifically Catholic loves absolution,
Right.
and yet the guilt climbs higher.
It's a million letting goes, not one.
Still may hate it.
Yeah, it sucks. Not fun.
I think it's especially difficult when you've been drawn to the path that's full of snakes your whole life.
Yeah.
You just really like snaky heights. Really into snaky places. Just, well, they're drawn there.
I can fix the snakes. I can turn snakes into sticks.
Yeah.
It's called a rock.
I thought when you said, the idea of thinking like, I'm never gonna let that happen again, like my brain's just like, I didn't actually let that happen the first time. So it's like the idea that I can make it so that it never happens again is also something to like, put myself in the best position that I can. Again, like looking back at things and say, what was in my control? And what is in my control again? But also, it depends on what it is, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you can't necessarily prevent impermanence from being impermanence, things like that. But, we have control over the people that we surround ourselves with. That's something we have control over. Obviously we don't have psychic powers, so we can't necessarily predict everything that, the people we surround ourselves will do. But boundaries.
Sometimes it's more about like how quickly can I revoke consent I didn't give? Or like how quickly can I find the need, like when the need is there before it becomes a problem, how do I identify the snake?
Exactly. Right? Usually we don't identify it's a snake until it's like,
Yeah.
got us in a stranglehold. It's like grown to be like a anaconda instead of just
And
like.
that's part of it that's hard because it's like you have to trust yourself
Mhm.
to not fall into the same traps again and again, which is less about the snake, more about
and that's the question of like, again, the wise view. It's not assuming every snake's a snake, because then you're walking through your life fearful.
yeah.
But also, if you're refusing to see snakes,
Right.
then you're just eluding yourself. It's like, no, I trust them. I'm sure they're fine.
Yeah.
And then you're just
Reaching,
also not
reaching
wise.
for the snakes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've definitely been guilty of the like, no, everybody's totally a stick. Totally. Like, I believe in human goodness. Right? go ahead and end it there. Donna, if you would like to donate, so that way we can continue paying rent and amplifying Dharma Punks, creating events like we got to do this past weekend, yeah, please donate. $5 to $10 suggested donation. How dare you? You're gonna make me work for it. Like go to a bank or something.
That's Sri Lankan money.
What do you
The only
want?
place you can turn it into anything else is in Sri Lanka. Like a bank
See,
can't even help you.
perfect perception. This is money somewhere. This is useless to me. All right, let's dedicate some merit. May any goodness that has arisen here today be spread above and below to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying. It does have an owl on it.